So, welcome everybody to Horizon Scan, and today we're talking to Jonathan Taylor, who's got the all-encompassing title of Client Services Director for Panlogic, which is a digital solutions firm aiming mainly at the public sector. And Jonathan, I guess Client Services Director kind of embodies a whole lot of things. Basically, you get pretty much all the problems. Would I be right?
Peter, absolutely. Good morning as well. Yeah, it seems that way. Everything lands on my desk. And I think over the last year or so, we've been dealing with a myriad of problems, both on technology, but also staff, to try and work out, just like everyone else in the industry or the world, how we deal with pandemic and post-pandemic. So interesting time, but certainly stressful too.
Well, what's it been like in serving the public sector? Has that been bumpy in the last year or so?
Not as much as you may think, actually, Peter. We've been very fortunate because the government haven't put brakes on, spending. Some projects have been mothballed, so things we were expecting to do over the last year, perhaps we haven't done. But in terms of a baseline continue project X, Y, Z, that work is still gone on. We do a lot of support contracts as well. So typically when we complete a piece of work, we then hang around to service that application, to keep it up to date, to host it, and be thinking about those kind of tweaks and changes that are needed on an iterative basis. So yeah, from a big project perspective, yes, it's slowed down dramatically. But in terms of keep the lights on, we've been very lucky to be serving the public sector, I think, during this time.
And I guess you're now back in the office.
It's a beautiful office, isn't it?
Yeah, which is great. That in some ways is a marker that we're now looking to the future. Is that also true for your customers?
Yes and no. So some customers are in the office, some are very much not in the office. And I think we see it whether it's public sector or whether it's private sector. There's a lot of resistance, I think, on a personal level to go back to the office. And I think about myself, I now do drop off and pick up from school every now and again. You end up having more of a family life, so you have that balance between personal and private, personal and work, which over the last year we've all gotten habits. So both life kind of puts it back, and then there's the commute, and from a health and safety perspective, in terms of do I want to be on a tube? Maybe not. And then there's the point around, well, you spend an hour getting to work and an hour coming back. A lot of people don't really want to do that anymore. So it's going to be a challenge getting people back to the office. And I think there's a point as to most sensible businesses, I don't think will enforce it, which puts a whole big question mark on what this new norm is going to look like.
So, I mean, I know from conversations that you and I have had over the last 2 or 3 months that 2021 has been ludicrously busy for you. I'm hearing a kind of not quite business as usual in the public sector from you, but that some things have slowed up, other things have stayed the same. Where has the change come? What's made 2021 different for you? Characterize that for me.
Yeah, I think it's probably the year of treading water that everyone had to do over the last 12 months, or a bit longer than that. And that means lots of things perhaps haven't been dealt with. From an organization, from a Panlogic perspective, we've seen a change in team. Some folks have thought out their lives and what they want to do or don't want to do in their life. So we've had a change in team. So from an operations perspective, that's been busy. And then we've had one project in particular that has grown quite dramatically over the last year. And that's to roll things out to kind of nationally. So it's a big launch program, and that's going to keep us quite busy over the next 12 months. Whether that's going to be virtually or in person, I think probably a mixture. But that then means that we're in a place where we've got different teams. We've got technology which has moved on in terms of what we're trying to do with our clients, and then we have the challenge of projects as well. And you bring all those three things together, then from my desk it becomes really quite hectic. because you're trying to service clients, you're trying to keep a team going, and then you're trying to make sure that actually from a technology perspective, lights are on and everything's kind of firing in the right way. We had one situation over the last 6 months where we did have some server problems with a project we launched, and getting people into the office to deal with that was a real challenge.
So it sounds as though you're personally, as it were, in the middle of the mix between the customer and what you're trying to do with the customer and internally, and how you marshal the resources and bring them to bear to deliver to customer expectations. Am I right?
Yeah, I think that's
the knot in the bow tie.
I think so. I think that's quite an eloquent way of putting it. I guess one of the benefits and the drawback of my role is you get it from both sides. You're that knot in the bow tie, as you say. So I get to see it from all angles.
And give me a sense. I guess we should just flesh out what Panlogic thinks of as digital solutions. What are the things that it might be offering for its customers, and give us a sense for how those things are changing as well.
Sure. So I guess as an organization, a digital solution could be as simple as a website, or it can kind of become more of an application build with then interplays and links to different business systems, be that CRMs, a whole host of other things as well, which define then processes. We've got one piece of work which looks at guidance, how should you deal with things in certain situations based on a scenario, and that requires a lot of complex workflows. So it's not a pretty website, it's how are we going to help you transform your business or your department through digital transformation. And that's exciting because actually digital is rife right now, especially as we move to a world where things are decentralized, everything's done on the web. We've seen a number of Zoom meetings we've all had recently. If you can't do it online, you can't do it, or you can't do it effectively. And that's interesting. In fact, there's one bit of work which won't dwell on too much we've been doing with the ONS, the Office of National Statistics, and that's trying to understand how people are using their time. So are you sleeping, are you walking the dog, are you doing childcare, are you actually having to do caring on a kind of social level? And some of the output from that has been obviously very interesting on a national level and for the ONS, but also on a personal level now seeing those changes, because you kind of see, you're thinking about the whole time now, well, how does this mean that my time is being spent in a different way? But that's the kind of work we do.
And in all of this, where's the pinch points for Panlogic? Where are the constraints that you're struggling with? Because it doesn't sound like you're in the cookie cutter business where, do they want a red one, a blue one, or a green one? Well, okay, it's a red one, right? Here's a red one. It sounds very much as though there's a good deal of customer discovery, design, engagement, and then specific engineering. That sounds like a lot of quite specific client-related work.
Yeah, I think that's one of the drawbacks we found ourselves. We are in the business of doing bespoke work. If I could just sell the blue one, that'd be great, Peter. But I can't. Everything has got to go through those processes of discovery, design, build, test, etc., etc. So I guess the pinch points are, first off, we get to the point where the client wants to be doing something, but to deliver a project, to use quite a broad term there, you need to have robust project management who can understand and scope out what that piece of work looks like. You've got to have the technical team be able to provide what the technical specifications are so you can build the thing out. You've got to have a very capable development team. You've then got to have DevOps people to actually get the thing online, to get it serviceable, to get it on the right infrastructure. And then you've got to have a team who can manage that infrastructure and actually allow the solutions that we build to run seamlessly. Because in our day-to-day world, we click a button, we expect it to work. You go on your Gmail or you go on any other banking website, you press 6 buttons and you expect to be doing something you want to be doing, or three buttons, whatever it is. So we need to do all the legwork at the beginning to then get the customer experience or the the UK citizen experience, whereby it's easy, it's simple, and it's intuitive, and it works. And if you get any disruption to any of those blocks of work, then the whole thing starts to untangle pretty quickly, and you end up having a delay or something that's been done wrong. You have a magnification of those problems later down the line.
I can imagine that you're very team dependent, who you've got on your team, and I can imagine that's one of the ultimate constraints for you. I guess it feels like the small duvet problem, that you can have your feet warm or your shoulders warm, but you can't have your feet and your shoulders warm. Have I characterized it right in terms of your team? I mean, I can just visualize the team all being over here solving that problem, but then there's another problem in the opposite corner of the room. So they've got to move all, and how do you move those people around? And am I characterizing it?
You are, and I think it's also acute. Panlogic is not an organization that has hundreds of staff. We are pretty small. So to use your term around duvet, you do end up with very ruffled duvet, because you do have to be able to move people around, and you don't have one person or 6 people doing one project. They have multiple projects, multiple work, and from a planning perspective, you've got to make sure that each one of the elements of work they're focused on, project they're working on, or client they're working on, they'll be without being too old school about it, the whole kind of waterfall, the Gantt chart, in terms of you do this and then you're doing this on different projects. Obviously, we're an agile business, but you have to manage people in a very different way, because you need to make sure you have them for a block of time so you can move on into the next project and do the same thing again. So yeah, I'm really dependent on the team.
How have you set about moving Panlogic forward?
So yeah, every organization wants to grow, and I think Panlogic is growing, so that's exciting. The problem about people is, especially for an organization like us, where things aren't so scalable because everything is bespoke, you need to be able to grow that team, but also you've got to make sure you have enough business to actually justify that cost. Every organization is the same. You hire 10 more people, well, then you've wiped out the profit for the quarter or the year. So what that then becomes is hiring the right people. And in my role, it's about then making sure I support those project managers, because those are the ultimate first step of the customer that I manage. But then also allow them the wiggle room that I can put my oar in and try and say, actually, to steer those conversations, steer that project to something that I can see as an opportunity. So I'm going to mess with what they're trying to organize, because for 2 reasons I'm interrupting. One, I can think there's something they're missing that they should be considering. And the second thing, without being horribly commercial, is I can see an opportunity to make more money. So then you've got the problem of wanting to onboard more customers as well as service customers. I think over the last 12 months, our focus has been on not trying to go out and win new customers. It's been about winning business from existing customers and maintaining what we already do. So that can be making changes to products we've delivered, or it can be thinking a little bit around what we're delivering based on the new world that we're all kind of entering. So my big challenge is about people. And then that drives up the impetus, I guess, for it's people and time. It's not just people. It's about how much time are you allowing everyone to spend on various things, and do you have the right people in place to be able to do that? We started putting a new piece of software for time tracking, but also to try and manage the resource, the scheduling resource in a better way. But invariably that means I'm putting 2-hour boxes in various people's schedule to do pieces of work. And that comes very close to micromanaging people, which no one wants to micromanage, and no one wants to be micromanaged. So you've got to make sure you've got hires which are credible people that have got a lot of experience. You've got to be thinking about the people you're hiring. You've got to be able to give them a little bit of leeway, a little bit of more leash effectively. But at the same time, you've got to be able to box up their time and say, you've only got this amount of time to do X or Y project. And that's fraught with difficulty because you're trying to do three things there, and each one is almost counterintuitive to the next.
Yeah, it's a challenge when you've got these complex projects. You know, if they were simple red, blue, or green, that would be a lot easier because you'd be essentially cookie cutter solution.
Yeah, but when we're remote as well, Peter, the problem is when you're briefing someone. If you and I are sitting down together in an office and we're working through what a technical solution should be, we're bouncing off each other. If I'm trying to do that remote, even on a video call, it's much harder to stand up and go to a whiteboard and map something else. So you find that as much as you try, as much effort you put in, some things get lost in translation more than they do in the office. So then we're back to the previous point as to we want people in the office, not all the time, but a couple days a week. So actually you can have those briefing sessions in person to maximize the efficiencies that you can get from that, as well as the interaction that we all kind of crave, consciously or subconsciously. So the initial point, if we're making some mistakes because things aren't being briefed properly, that then has a cascading problem because you've got to go back and do work again, which has been a problem on team resource and obviously delivery dates and expectations as well. And that's probably been one of the biggest challenges over the last 12 months. It's been on people, etc. It's the fact that it's much harder to get bespoke things done right, 100%, when you're actually not interacting with people face to face.
Yeah. And over the last few months, you and I have been having a lot of discussions about outsourcing parts of your work so as to free your people up for other things, and just talk about that thinking, if you will, as to how that thought process developed and how it's become a part of your operating model, because that's quite a gift for Panlogic, I think, isn't it?
It's hugely different. So Panlogic historically does everything. We're a full service agency, but as I've kind of tried to highlight, we've got all these different things at play which are more acute during a pandemic. So outsourcing can be an ugly word. So I try and talk about partners instead, but effectively it is outsourcing. It's outsourcing the problem. It's saying, okay, I need someone else to manage this problem for me. So hosting, cloud is where we all kind of exist and we live, especially folks within my world. But if I can't focus my dev team who do kind of DevOps, so they're all kind of full stack here. If I'm finding I'm being burnt on that side, then I need to find a way to make sure I can make sure the solutions are fully robust and running smoothly. Then I've got to deal with the hosting elsewhere. So by default, we host pretty much everything on AWS. That's the right solution for us as an organization. But things can still go wrong there. It's not just you put it on and you're done. You've got to make sure the servers are all up to date with the recent kind of updates and patches, etc. But also you've got to have effective monitoring in place. So if there's the system starts to get overloaded, it's about to fall over, you've got to have someone to get in there quickly and stop it from falling over. Or if it does fall over, you've got to make sure you pick it up pretty quickly. If we have quite a small team, if I have to take a developer out of what he's currently doing or she's currently doing to deal with a DevOps issue, something on the server, then everything else starts falling apart as well. So to remove one of the buckets of pain, we've been exploring how do we have support with an MSP, managed service provider, to deal with the hosting. So we build everything, we get it on AWS, and then we ask someone else to maintain that for us. There's obviously a cost to us for that, which was a shame, but it actually is a cost that's worthwhile paying, because if every day I lose a developer for has a greater impact on what I would be charging that client for it. So all in all, although we're kind of early stages of this, I'm firmly the believer that you need to get other people around to help you. We don't live in this world anymore. I don't think we have for many years, to be fair, whereby you try and do everything yourself, or you try and do everything with a group of people that you associate with in terms of employees, for lack of a better word. You've got to have experts in various spaces. And if Panlogic doesn't want to pay a developer full-time just to to manage and maintain servers, and we're going to use a full stack team who are on other things as well, then either we've got to find how we slice the developer in half, so half their time is on DevOps and server maintenance, but those things always get delayed. If I have a deadline, I always have a deadline that we're pushing hard for, and we're at risk of, then I need those developers to be 100% focused on delivering a solution for a client, rather than preemptively thinking, have I thought about the upgrade for that server? It needs to be done by Wednesday. Let's get it done by Wednesday, which invariably becomes end of Wednesday rather than the week before. So I think what I'm saying in my ramble here is trust. We live in an interconnected world where we have experts in different areas. If you need to be able to have expertise in one particular area, but you don't have that need for a whole person or a whole two people, or you need 1.5, not 3, but whatever it is, you've got to take a decision as an organization to say, I'm not best placed to do that, or I will be more efficient and I will deliver more for my clients if that problem isn't there. So it comes back to, I guess, it's time and people again. It's how do you want to move your troops around, and how do you want to deal with the challenges and problems? If it's a problem that you feel you can own yourself, then fine, keep it in-house. But if you think that other people that you know, that you trust, and you have partners, then you shouldn't be trying to hold on to these things yourself. Just like Adam Smith with Wealth of Nations, right? If you can create a bale of corn, 10 bales of corn, you do that rather than try and tinker around with pottery. And I think we've got to just take a little bit of that knowledge in terms of do things properly, think about where your strengths are, and focus on that, because you can't be best at everything as much as we will try to be.
Well, Jonathan, that's really really interesting, and I think we're very much of a mind here, and what we see the ability to enable you to do more of what your business is, where your special place is, which is digital solutions for the public sector, and the more we can help you spend more time doing that and spending time at a higher value with your clients, then I think this is a partnership that can work well. It sounds like you're in a busy office, which is always a good sign, isn't it?
It is. I think there's a few people that are noisy, so apologies for the background.
Well, just in closing, just give me a sense of where you see the rest of the year for Panlogic.
So I think across our client pool, there are probably 3 or 4 that have big plans for what they need to do this financial year. So my focus will be on servicing those 3 or 4 clients an awful lot. We also have 2 or 3 which don't really want to do anything right now. So we do public sector, but also charities, and there's a lot of those which are going through restructures. So we want to be a friend and support to those, but also we need to be cognizant of the fact that some people don't want to be doing anything right now. They need to be business as usual, fixing other problems. So we've got to be a partner to those organizations and let them have their breathing space. And we've got to then also be a partner to those firms that do need to, or organizations that need to be able to grow. So it's going to be a year of 2 halves, I think, whereby some people do an awful lot and some people do absolutely nothing. That's my thoughts for the year.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think a traveling companion is how I see what we do, and it sounds as though you're seeing yourselves, Panlogic, being a traveling companion with each of your customers, and some of them need to move quickly and in different directions, and you need to be able to go with them, and they need to know that you'll be there.
Mm-hmm. No, I think that's absolutely right. I mean, I should ask you the same question. How do you see this year?
I think it's going to be bumpy. I think it's very dependent upon which sector you're in. We've yet got to see how this next season is going to play out as far as the pandemic is concerned. And I think we've got to get to the other side of the winter before we're in a more confident place. So I'm kind of reserving judgment, if you like. It's wonderful to have slightly decent weather and be able to get out.
Slightly, Peter, slightly.
And I think business feels kind of the same way. that it's great to be out and about and be able to meet people. A lot of sectors are doing what they do for the first time in a year. I do think, though, the direction is clear. It is up from here. The only question is how long it's going to take and how many bumps there are going to be on the way.